Getting to be crunch time for Oklahoma and Oklahoma State football in the race to see who is the best team in the Big 12 South. Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Bedlam Nation Conversation presented by Dodge. I'm Mike Kaler here at the Dodge Sports Desk at the Opubco Studios, joined as always by OU football beat writer Jake Trotter and OSU football beat writer Scott Wright. Guys, let's start this first segment talking about this week's games, and then later we're going to talk about Texas and Texas Tech and how all that's going to sort itself out. First, OU has Nebraska, OSU has Iowa State. Anything to worry about in either one of those games? Jake, we'll start with you.
Well, I think there's maybe a small area for concern because Nebraska has won a couple games in a row. They took Texas Tech to overtime on the road. But obviously Oklahoma is a superior team, and I would expect the Sooners to take care of business. Scott,
you got Iowa State. What do you think? We're all worried about trap games these days, but does that hold up?
I don't see it being an issue. If there is any kind of concern, it's an emotional thing for Oklahoma State. Iowa State, I think, is going out of their way to prove that they're the worst team in the conference at this point. So I don't think that Oklahoma State has too much to worry about. It might be a little bit of a slow start if there's any kind of an emotional letdown, but I really don't see them having any trouble this week.
Jake, can you just talk about, both of you guys can talk about this, just kind of, the feeling around the teams and how they're playing. Seems like OU, even though they're higher ranked, there's been a big emphasis on, hey, we've got all these problems we got to fix. OSU, they're coming off a loss, but they seem like, we're ranked higher than we've ever been. We're really excited. What's the feeling down in Norman?
Well, I think both programs have been at different levels historically, and I think OSU obviously is a program that's rising with the facilities and the season they're having next year, and they have a chance to be very good next year. And Oklahoma's still trying to come up with the national championship for the first time in, 8 years now. So I think there's been a little anxiety in Norman after the Texas loss, and then obviously the defense giving up a number of big plays and some yards and some points actually too since then. So they still have a chance to accomplish all their goals. I think winning the Big 12 South will hinge on what happens this weekend with Texas Tech and Texas, but even then they can still go to a BCS Bowl, which I think people would say would be a pretty good season. Maybe not the best season you'd want to have, but still a season a lot of other programs would like to have too.
Scott, how's the feeling up in Stillwater? They seem to be counting this moral victory, as a moral victory, even with the loss to Texas, and seem all right with that.
A little bit. It's not quite as much as you might expect, because this team, after winning at Missouri, they went into Texas thinking that they had a good chance at winning this game, and coming out of that game, they felt like they missed some opportunities to win it. So there were some pretty unhappy players up at Oklahoma State. They do, however, understand that they're making progress. They played the number one team in the nation closer than anyone else has so far, held them to only 28 points, and they're feeling really confident right now. And they look at what's ahead of them. They're really in the same situation as Oklahoma at this point. The Big 12 South is still possibly out there, a BCS Bowl. Regardless, it looks like they're going to have a better season than what a lot of us were predicting.
Alrighty, thanks guys. We'll be back in the next segment to try to sort out this whole Big 12 South after this word from Dodge. And we're back with our second segment here on the Bedlam Nation Conversation, and we're going to use it to look ahead a little bit. Big game Saturday, number 1 Texas at number 6 Texas Tech. Game day is going to Lubbock, for goodness sakes. How do you guys expect that game to sort itself out, and how does how does Texas Tech winning and how does Texas winning affect both of your guys' teams? Jake?
Well, I think obviously if Texas wins, you would think that they would have the Big 12 championship, or the Big 12 South at least, wrapped up. Because I think at that point they'd have to lose to A&M and Kansas, lose both games probably. So that's not going to happen. They would have beaten the 3 contenders in the South, and OU, Texas Tech, and OSU. So they can pretty much all but wrap up the South with a win this weekend. Now, if Texas Tech wins, you can help me out here. It opens up a lot of possibilities. And really, the next big game then becomes OSU at Tech, because the loser of that game is in some trouble. But obviously Tech would have the control its own destiny with the win over Texas. Really controls its own destiny now.
Yeah, really, a Texas Tech victory is the best thing to give Oklahoma or Oklahoma State a chance, because you have the potential for a 3-way tie, and the 3-way tie is going to be easier than counting on Texas losing 2 games down the stretch. So that's really what Oklahoma and Oklahoma State need to happen, unless Texas does happen to stumble twice, but with the schedule they've got, you don't expect that to happen. Oklahoma State really probably Oklahoma too need to just focus on winning the rest of their games and going into that Bedlam game, potentially playing for a stake in the Big 12 South, maybe a BCS bowl. A lot could be on the line when Bedlam gets here.
Tech would need to beat Texas and then lose to OSU at home, lose to OU on the road. That would knock them out. Mm-hmm. Then it would become a three-way tie between. They probably need, I guess, Texas to lose. Actually, is there any way that OU and OSU could be playing for the South title? I don't know if that's possible because both teams lost to Texas. You would need Texas to lose again, right?
Yeah. Well, no. If it's a big mess. That's
because
probably
the tiebreaker would have to involve Texas Tech for either OU or OSU to go. So there's no way that Bedlam game is for the South in of itself.
Yeah.
Now one team could be playing for the South title, but I think the only way that either team can go is if it's Tech and Texas, and then either one of the Oklahoma schools, since the Oklahoma schools already lost to Texas.
Right.
But we've talked about the Bedlam game. It might not be for the South title, but it could be for a BCS bowl because there's a chance that the second best team in the league could get that at large.
Frankly, I think it would be more if you're looking at it that way, not worrying about the South title. It would almost be more beneficial for Texas to beat Texas Tech because that would KO them. Then if OSU would go up and beat Texas Tech, and then OU would beat Tech at home, then you have two one-loss state teams playing for a chance to go to BCS Bowl. I think would have a pretty good chance because who else in the Big 12 would go then? Texas would go to the national championship or to BCS Bowl, even if they got clipped at some point. And then there would be an at-large berth available for the Big 12, and it's not coming from the North, so you think it would come from OU or OSU.
Is that the most likely? What's the most likely of all these scenarios, do you think?
It depends how much of a chance you give OSU to win at Tech. I mean, that's really the key game. If OSU loses at Tech, they're done. And if they win at Tech, then they're back in it. So I don't know. I mean, it's kind of a place where OSU hasn't played all that well lately, but I like the way that they match up with Tech because they can run the ball and they can slow the game down a little bit.
Well, in years past, it's been they've got to beat Tech to be bowl eligible, so it's a heck of a lot different than it's been the past 3 or 4 years.
Right.
But do you agree with Jake that the running element? I mean, even showed in the Texas game. Is this the running element that OSU has? It makes them, hold up in any game, even in the Bedlam game. They're the better running team.
Yeah, I definitely think that makes a big difference because Texas Tech again is another one of those offenses that can score a lot and score really quickly. So if you can control the ball and keep their offense off the field, it's a good thing. And the interesting thing about this series, the home team has won the last 7 games in this series going back. So it's going to be it'll be kind of having to break the trend if Oklahoma State's going to go in there and pull it off.
I don't know if you're going to ask us for predictions, but I think Texas Tech matches up really well with Texas because I see that game getting to a shootout, and Tech is the king shootout team. I mean, you don't want to get in a shootout with Texas Tech. And it's in Lubbock, which obviously is not an easy place to play. It'll arguably be the biggest game in the history of the school. Mm-hmm. So I think that it's going to be a tough game for Texas. This will be, I think, their toughest game yet when you look at OU, OSU, and now Texas Tech.
Well, weird things always happen in Lubbock. You can ask both schools that, for goodness sakes. So, okay, we'll predict the game right after this message from Dodge, and we'll wrap up the Bedlam Nation conversation. Final segment here on the Bedlam Nation Conversation, predictions. I want to know what you guys think are going to happen in the game you're covering on Saturday, and also a pick for the Texas Tech game. Go ahead, Scott.
As far as the Oklahoma State Iowa State game, I think the Cowboys handled this one fairly easily. I'll take the Cowboys 49-14 in Lubbock. I haven't been sold on Texas all year, but they're playing really well, and I think that they'll play.
You keep saying that.
I know it. I haven't been, but I think they're going to play well enough to win in Lubbock. But it's going to be a close one.
Now, if they go and win the national championship, will you finally come on and say,
I'll finally
I think I'm sold on long time.
I'll finally admit it.
Who was the first one that said Texas was good, by the way? I was saying that in August. No one was believing. And who
was the first one that said Oklahoma State was good?
Well, there you go.
Maybe Mike.
He probably beat me on that.
Who from Iowa State is going to score 14 points, by the way? I think
Oklahoma State, the defense kind of relaxes usually when they get up by about 30 points.
My game, I think I'm going to have, Oklahoma probably 56, Nebraska in the 28 department, another sort of Kansas State-like game. Nebraska can score a little bit, and until OU shows that it can keep people from gashing them with big plays, I think they're going to continue to give up points. I got Texas Tech 42, Texas 40 in the biggest upset.
Are you putting that in the paper?
It's in the paper
How
today,
about
I think.
that? All righty. Okay, that wraps.
Hey, I picked Baylor to beat Nebraska last week. I can't do any worse.
Alrighty, thanks guys. That does it for this edition of the Bedlam Nation Conversation. Be sure to catch all of our coverage this weekend from the OU and OSU games, including Saturday's live pregame from Campus Corner in Norman at 5 p.m. on Saturday, and everything else on newsok.com, newsok.tv, and every day in the Oklahoma.